Let me just say with Derek's, let's talk about it. Derek's was a little apprehensive in front about a few things. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, Derek, just trust me, man. I know this ain't you, okay? This is Jarvis. You're not the character. You got to separate yourself. But I get it because these characters. People have emotional connections to these characters because they're so familiar. So you want people as an actor to love you on screen. You want that. So whenever your character is moving in a direction where it can be a little controversial, or people can sort of pick apart who you are as a character, what you're saying. It could be a little intimidating, I guess, as an actor. You know what I mean?
Whoever wants to start, how did you come across the Johnson project? I guess that's a hard question to do to 4 people.
No, that's an easy question for us because we know who's going to answer that one.
Oh, okay. Y'all done this before. Let's go.
Well, Johnson started, the original pilot started in 2014. It's a pilot that I wrote just to offer a more balanced perspective on Black men, representing Black men that I knew, that I had in my life, and representing myself. I just felt like there was a void on television, and it just sort of snowballed as the years went on. In Hollywood, you could write a script and it could sit on your computer for years. And that's kind of what it did. The original pilot sat on my laptop, probably even changed laptops 2 or 3 times before we got a chance to film the pilot. But in 2017, I met Thomas Q. Jones, a mutual friend introduced us. And, I had already known Derek's. I had already known Philip. And these are 2 guys who I really respected as actors. I worked with them on multiple projects, and just very much in awe of their range and their essences and just who they were in front of the camera and behind the camera. And that's very important to me. You always want to enjoy who you work with and like who you work with. And so I started sort of seeing them as these characters in this script that I had already written, kind of casting them in my mind. Met Thomas and approached Thomas as an actor as well. And Thomas was interested in way more than being an actor. He wanted to be an executive producer and to help push this narrative forward. For him, it was bigger than just being on screen. It was changing the narrative. That's very important to all of us, actually. And so I introduced Derek's and Philip to Thomas, and it was instantaneous, man. We just clicked. We're like brothers, in real life. And so that was the beginning of the show. Nobody really had to audition for the show. These are all people who I had known for years, and that's why the chemistry, I think, is so great on this show, is because we're really close, off screen. So we shot an independent pilot in 2017. Thomas and I invested our own money, just took a gamble on ourselves, and it paid off. It worked. It worked out. We were able to connect with A Bird and a Bear Entertainment, which is Cedric the Entertainer, Eric C. Rohn's production company. And eventually we got the project over to Bounce TV. And Johnson season 1 was greenlit and started airing in 2021.
So, one, the fact that none of you had to audition, like, I mean, wow. It's good to have friends in good places. So I mean, I think what you created is important, because there's not a lot of dialogue about us as Black men that actually encompasses like who we are as Black men. So to be able to do that and put that into a structure that makes sense for people where they can have a different viewpoint, I think it's very important. Thomas, when you came along, first, let me tell you, like, you saved my fantasy football team on numerous occasions. So you were very much appreciated in my household. So
you're welcome.
Exactly. When you step into the acting arena, why this project? Why was this one important for you to say, let me put on the EP hat and go for it?
It just spoke to me as a Black man. and the importance of the narrative. First of all, meeting Deji, when we met, we immediately connected. Just his vision as a creative, his experience, the fact that he took the time to write a series like this, that he cared enough to write it about Black men, to write it. It said a lot about his character and integrity, and so I wanted to connect with him on a much bigger level, like he said, outside of just being an actor. And at the time, I was looking to start to produce my own content. Hollywood's a tough business. You go on a lot of auditions, and a lot of times you get told no. So, what better way to take the bull by the horns than to create your own content and produce it. So being an EP on this was a no-brainer for me. And then once we actually started to meet some of the talent like Derek's and Philip, it became a mission, not just something to aspire to make, but it became a mission to get this narrative out there. I think it's an important show to the culture. I think Black men and Black women appreciate it. Usually when you see Black men on TV or in the media, we're not shown in the most positive light. And granted, there are, Black men that aren't, doing the most positive things, but most Black men are, just like any other culture, whether it's white men, whether it's Hispanic men, there's a lot of them that aren't doing the right things, but most of them are, so it felt like this was an opportunity to give us a fair shake at having a positive representation, and giving us a chance to be heard.
Yeah. So Derek and Philip, when y'all get the nod to come in, was it an easy choice? Or was it anything like conflicting before you going into the project?
I mean, I've always enjoyed and always been advocate for just making art with your friends, which is at first what this was. This was just a project that Deji approached me to do, and I'm very much a yes and person. Like if someone wants to shoot something with me, then I'll just shoot. So I kind of didn't even ask any questions. He's like, this script is about 4 Black men coming together, and I was like, working actor, what? Yes, yeah, sure. But when we really got into the project, when we got into the material, when we really discovered what it was, I learned that it was so much bigger than just having fun. It was actually like crafting something that would make an impact and was changing the narrative, and was getting to portray a character that I didn't realize at the time I just was never going to get to play otherwise. I was never going to get to be this complex of a person, not for the roles that I was going out for, trying to be a guest star on this spot, or trying to be, victim number 1 or this person number 2, getting to be a fully rounded, fully articulated human being, and to do it my way, and for that to be appreciated, is one of the biggest gifts that this being in this cast and being on this show has been. And I think that's something that many actors don't ever get to experience. So not only getting to play it for myself, but getting to do something that also portrays us in such a positive way that gives people a more nuanced perspective of what it's like to be us. It's huge. I didn't even realize at the time how huge it was.
Yeah, for me, I never read a script and saw Black men on a page like this. So that first impacted me, because I feel like, when you're reading, kind of like Thomas said earlier, like we're not always depicted in a positive light, where there's a certain image that comes out there. So when I read the script, I was blown away. And then also in shows that I've done, before, usually what happens is that you have, Black men where they're either very educated, smart, but then they're kind of goofy and, dorky, or they're very cool and then not illiterate. So this is the first time where I got to play a character that was swaggy, successful. He still was cool, and he had made money. And I loved that. So I just thought it was an amazing opportunity. So I was excited to be part of it.
And one other cool thing is, about the fact that none of us auditioned, I feel like the seeds that were planted along the way that helped us to find each other, those, you never know where those are coming from. I actually saw Deji. I first met Deji when he was coming in to audition for a project that I was just the reader for. We were casting this film, and I was helping an old friend of mine from college casted, and he comes in to read for the lead character. And I'm like, man, he's really good. I hope that he's the guy. And then I kind of just finessed my way into getting a role on that project because I was like, hey, I want to jump into it. But it was really all like, to me, it just speaks to the thing that Deji's always talking about is you don't network up, you network out. You work with the people who you're coming up with.
Right.
In my case, it was someone who I went to college with that got me in the room to even meet Deji in the first place. And lo and behold, you just never know where these are coming from, which is why I still advocate, like, you just gotta keep working with your friends, keep making art with the people around you. And people like Deji and Thomas who have very strong convictions, very strong passions, and such an incredible story and narrative to share. That's who you put your weight behind, not the the famous, not the name. You put it behind people who really have something to say.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The yard people are here. Like, I swear he's just there's no more leaves. Like there's nothing left.
It's done.
I think he's just in my yard. I swear he's just drinking the Gatorade and just has the damn thing blowing.
No, we know exactly what that's like because whenever we're shooting a important scene, the guys show up with the leaf blowers right when we see right when we yell.
It never fails.
So it never fails.
It never fails. So when you hear, it's hard to just call you guys castmates. When you hear your castmates and friends speak about your project in the way that they do, how does that make you feel knowing that you've put almost 10 years into creating this project specifically?
After season 1, Thomas would ask me, I would ask Thomas as well, like, does it feel real? Because this is something that we shopped around for years in Hollywood. And, it was a journey. There was a lot of no's, as most projects get. And then there was some interest as well, but with contingencies, change this character to that. What about this actor playing this role? And there were a lot of sort of, there was a vision that we had to stick to, and we had to kind of filter through the noise and keep pushing forward, even if that meant, the project not being greenlit in a timely manner. This thing could have still been being shopped, in Hollywood, and we probably would have still been behind it 100% trying to get it out there because it's so important. But after season 1, after all of that, Thomas would ask me, does it feel real? And it never felt real. It didn't feel real after season 1. It didn't feel real after season 2, because I think when you are passionate about something and you are on a mission, like Thomas said, you're not really focused on the fruits of your labor. You're not really focused on the accolades. You're not really focused on the lights and and the attention and the love that you get. You're focused on just doing the work. And I think over the past 4 years, we have just been focused on doing the work. And it's been a lot of work. You're talking about flying to Atlanta, shooting for 10 weeks, 12 hours a day, sometimes 13, 14 hours a day. Seasons 3 and 4, we shot it back to back, no breaks. Went to the Bahamas in season 4, a lot of work. But I do feel like now that we have 4 seasons under our belt, it is a huge accomplishment. I'm starting to really realize what we've done, and all the people that we've given opportunities to and the people that have taken advantage of those opportunities. Because it's one thing to give somebody an opportunity. It's another thing for them to take advantage of the opportunity that they have and for you to witness that. It's been beautiful. It's been absolutely beautiful. And I think that is the ultimate goal for me, is with this project, the next project is to continue to give people opportunities and put them in a position to where they can recognize, their God-given talent, because too often in this business, they don't get those chances.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. When you get to like a challenging role, at what point, I guess for everyone, did you realize you had to push yourself a little bit harder to kind of convey the reality of your character?
Let me just say with Derek's, let's talk about it. Derek's was a little apprehensive about a few things. You know what I'm saying? Like, Derek, just trust me, man. I know this ain't you, okay? This is Jarvis. You're not the character. You got to trust yourself. But I get it, because these characters, people have emotional connections to these characters because they're so familiar. So you want people as an actor to love you on screen. You want that, So whenever your character is moving in a direction where it can be a little controversial, or people can sort of pick apart who you are as a character, what you're saying. You know, it could be a little intimidating, I guess, as an actor. You know what I mean? But I can say, and I know Derek's will kind of finish the answer to this question. I mean, the way his character has grown from season 1 to season 4, he's so confident. Yeah. His character's so developed, and he is just killing it. You know, season 4 is just full-fledged commitment. So.
Yeah, it was definitely scary season 1. It was, you know, because I'm showing the other side of different perspectives, and so, you know, like I remember I was like, when we're doing the pool scene, the pool table scene, and everybody's like, "Yo, should white people be able to say the N-word?" And everybody's like, "No." The other, you know, Omar's like, "For sure, no." You know, and Keith's like, "No," and I'm like, why? They buy the albums. Why can't they say it too? It's like, man. But honestly, to see the arc of my character and to see what Deji wrote in that and gave it life, and to see it, like, to see him continue to evolve and elevate and grow as a man and confidence in who he is and remembering his roots, and, you know, the impact that not only the culture has on him, but that he can give back to it. It's been so rewarding, and I'm so grateful. I've never been able to play a character like this, and I'm so honored to be able to give life to Jarvis.
To see all these different perspectives, because that's a real, you know, people still have these conversations. They have these conversations in their living rooms and with their friends, and it's, the answer may seem clear to many of us, but you know, we get to represent what it's like to have that balanced conversation that people are having all over the country.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone down that road in that conversation. Some interesting perspectives on it. It gets very interesting. But it's when you're stretching yourself like that, nobody wants to be the hated person on the show. Which is like, nobody wants to be the bad guy in wrestling. Like, you just you don't want to do that. And so, but when you dig in, it's like, I'm really going to be the bad guy. It becomes fun but challenging, and then it's like trying to figure out how to quiet out the noise and realize that it's really not you. And I think that's the hard part.
Yeah, and even becomes more memorable, because you always remember the people that maybe that you did not necessarily like, but made you maybe insecure about your own insecurities. You know, or we're holding up, you know, the version of yourself that you don't like or that you wish you could change. You know, so there's important there's a lot of importance in those characters and those perspectives, and that's what this show is. It's giving, you know, perspectives based off the tough conversations and the sensitive, provocative conversations. You know, that's the one thing we don't do on this show. We don't run away from controversial topics or issues that may seem taboo in our community. You know, whether it's relationships, whether it's, you know, abuse, whether it's, you know, mental health, whatever it may be. You know, we run straight at it. You know, we don't want to run away from it. So there's going to be a lot of characters that are giving perspectives that might not be popular, but you need those perspectives to show the duality between, you know, not just Black men and Black women, but just even Black men in particular, because we don't all think the same. You know, one Black man may think one thing, another one may think something else.
That's what makes us rounded. So it makes us whole people.
But it's great when you put a group of people together and you realize as much as you have in common, you have so much more like that is not in common. There's a lot of differences from man to man. I think for me, I think one of the most interesting moments in an interview that I was doing is going from the entertainment aspect. We were talking about, you know, just career, work, and everything like that. We went into family. And like this person who exuded like so much confidence was like, you know, my biggest fear, I worry from day to day if I'm really like fucking my kid up. Like if I'm mentally just messing him up, and that worries me in trying to be successful and trying to provide for him if I'm actually making things worse for him in the future. And like in that moment, it was like, these are conversations that we're not necessarily having publicly, but people want to have and just don't really know how to tap into it. So for you to be able to create a show around taboo topics and not stray away from them, I think is it's important for the culture, and even outside of our culture, because some people need to know that we're not all the same person.
Yeah, and you know, to be able to tackle these topics and for not to be preachy, we're not shoving anything down anybody's throat. It's like, you know, this is what we go through. The show is hilarious, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, the show is really, really good. The show is dramatic. The show is entertaining, but it's enlightening, and it's really about finding that balance, you know, to where people can watch something and be entertained, but also learn something or be offered a different perspective that they may not have known. So
yeah. Who's the person in the cast that makes you have to do lines over again because you are laughing or you're the Joker?
All of us in different ways. I think for Thomas, we sometimes have to do the lines over because he's snacking on chips just off camera, and now we can't hear what our lines are.
Hey, man, I have a crafty problem. I ain't gonna...
crafty problem.
For Derek's, we do the line over because he always needs to know what his motivation is for every line. Like, well, this next line, what's your motivation again? Oh, it didn't change, Derek. It didn't change. It's
the same thing.
You need to make sure you're in line with the character.
The real deal, and I think this is the thing that's magnetic on the show, is that this brotherhood is a brotherhood that's on and off screen. If I was not on this show, and I work through my feelings of not being on this show, but if I would watch it. And these are the brothers that I would love to be a part of. This is the circle that I would love to have. All different Black men, but they have this common denominator. They have a theme. They hold each other accountable as well as love each other and lift each other up. And I think that one of the things that's really great is that, you know, a lot of times on TV, especially for Black men, there's a certain stereotype where, you know, you move, I move. You don't move, then I don't move. Mm-hmm. So if they get into a fight or they don't get along, then they either just decide to just let it go and move on, or they just go their separate ways. Right. And I feel like on Johnson, you know, Deji did a great job writing us in these scenarios where we have opportunities to show what that conflict is like and how we resolve it. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it takes another one of the Johnsons to help the other Johnson work through it. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. Yeah. You know, that's something that I want my sons to see and to be able to walk in life and see like how that goes and how that works.
Yeah, it's definitely made me want to evaluate my own personal relationships. I think one of the things that we discussed earlier is that what do we do when we're trying to reach out and communicate with our friends, with our brothers in our own lives? And I think it's become kind of a common understanding that we're not always that good at just reaching out to say like, hey, how are you doing? How are we checking on our strong friends, our weak friends? How are we just checking in with each other to show each other that there's love there? And being on this show and being part of this group has made me want to be a better friend because I'm seeing the examples of how you can handle some of these situations, these hardships, and seeing that even if everyone seems like they're okay, there could be things going on underneath that I could be supporting and vice versa. Yeah.
Is this a show for you guys where taking your character or taking the traits of your character out of the show is not a bad thing?
I didn't understand. Taking the traits out of our character?
Yeah. Like if you're taking on the traits of a character outside of the show.
Oh, right.
So like
in some ways, yeah. I think Deji has written these characters around more and more as time goes on. He's written them around how we are. Like he brings our essence into the pieces. So it's become a blend. Like Keith started out as this entity that kind of like an archetype, like the quirky, goofy guy who, you know, is fun and a little naive. And there is a lot of that's present in me, but also he's turned him into a little bit of both. He's kind of naive, but he's also very much like accountable. He's still very much like an adult, very much a man, but he still has that kind of childlike thing. And it's just more complex because we hold multitudes as humans and as men. And I love how I am feeling like I'm feeling more and more in line with the character every year. And that's not by happenstance. That's because Deji's writing the character to evolve just as we are evolving as people, as actors, as brothers.
Yeah, it's amazing that happens because sometimes I'm like, am I am I acting? Yo, what's up with you, man? like, how you know me like this? You know, because the dialogue is written how he just pays attention to how we talk. So the dialogue is something that I would say. And you don't realize it because, like, you know, we've been saying our chemistry is so natural. These are my brothers. We're friends. Like, we're brothers in real life. So our chemistry and our natural relationships with each other just jump off the screen. You know, we have our own specific nuanced relationships with each other. So when we're interacting with each other on screen, it's no different than, you know, when you say cut, we're just having the same conversation. You know, and it's only when there's moments where I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This isn't what I would say because I haven't experienced this. Is when I'm like, oh, I need to really get in my acting toolbox and find a substitution and some inner objects and, you know, all the things that come with that. You know what I mean? So it's a beautiful experience because you're able to be you fully and be accepted as you. And you're able to also stretch your legs as an actor because there are certain, you know, moments that your character is going to have to, you know, is going to be somebody that you're not. So it's a great experience as an actor. It's been one of the, honestly, the best experience that I've ever had in this business in the last 10 years as an actor. It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
Does it make it easier writing for the characters because you become friends and closer throughout the show?
Absolutely. Yeah, like exactly what Philip said is like I had this vision of these characters in my mind early on. But after season 1, you know, going into season 2, it's a little bit easier. Going into season 3, I know everybody's voice, how people talk, what they would say, what they wouldn't say. Even before we shoot, it's like I'm reading over the sides again. I'm like, dang, I don't think Jarvis would say that. I'm gonna give that line to you. You know what I'm saying? I'm really just sort of making sure that everybody would say every single thing that's on that page, or even the way that, you know, Derek's likes to talk. You know, Derek's he does a lot of start stop. You know, and I'm like, I'm putting that in the script, you know what I'm saying? So Jarvis does a lot of start stopping, you know what I'm saying? But it's for emphasis. He has conversations with himself before he gets the point out. And I love that about him as an actor because he's so unique and it makes him more interesting as an actor. But I make sure that Jarvis says that so he doesn't have to ad-lib it. I'm throwing the ad-libs in there in the next season, you know? So it gets a lot easier and it gets fun too to just see how fluid, you know, these actors are in these characters. It's really great to watch.
Some improv still makes it in every now and then if we couldn't cut for time.
Yeah. And that's hard to do and like keep a straight face and stay in character. It's like, bro, you're killing me. But you know, in like closing this out, I appreciate what all of you are doing and the essence that you each bring to the character, to the show. It's important. And the fact that we can watch your show and then take the conversation from the show into the friendship and into like text groups and things like that and start asking those questions and making sure that not that you're on the same accord, but like you understand people's perspective that are in your circle. I think that's important. I think it's a testament to a good show and a good script when you can take it from TV to like real life and have those same conversations. So congratulations for creating something amazing, and for all of you doing your part to make it work.
Thank
you, brother.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for today.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna end this so she don't have to come back on and wrap this shit up. Thank you for tuning into another episode of SUAVV Sessions. I appreciate y'all. Follow us on social media at SUAVV Magazine. Like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And until next time, y'all be safe, spread some love, and stay suave. Peace.